like to present our speaker, Reverend John Sullivan. John?
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's interesting how this little lecture came about. We had a chance to have National Spiritualists come down and do some workshops. When we read the preamble to what they wanted to do, the mediumship took me by surprise. When we train people to be a medium, we do so in the sense, get out of your way. What are you getting? Give it out. But nowadays, we're politically motivated somehow to be correct. And the question is, if we do that with spirit, now I'm not saying that every medium has everything on the ball and doesn't somewhat color things. That happens, we're human beings. But to start at that point is really downing the spirit people. We assume, and we should know, that the spirit people now can see clearer than when they were here. So why are we interfering? We shouldn't interfere. We are open and receptive to the spirit message given by the medium, real medium, ones who've been trained to get out of their way and give what they get. Now, sometimes, if you really do that, which I have been doing most of my life, we find ourselves in certain predicaments. But how does that work? And the answer is simple. Prepare yourself to see and hear the person keeping your personal thoughts out of the way. Get them out of the way. From what I've learned over the years, we as individuals have become able to eliminate personal beliefs due to the pressures that we are under in the world, which we seem to need the political correctness, whatever that takes place. I have never heard spirit being politically correct. So if they've got something that we don't know, the first chemist I spoke to in my spirit band at a trumpet seance was a Dr. Jameson. He was the man in spirit who was direct to the point. Now, I'm to the point. Sometimes people come in, and I asked one lady who came to me once and got a reading, and the spirit, and actually, as I remember, it was her ex-husband who had passed away, said to her, "You're going to get a relationship coming up. Enjoy it." "Oh, no, it's not going to happen. I don't want anybody in my life, blah, 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 blah." Okay. So she kept going to another lady. And one day I said to her, "Do me a favor. Be honest with me for a moment. Why do you go to her instead of coming back to me?" Well, she kind of fixes it so it sounds better. I said, "Do you want the message or do you want it to sound better? I mean, just write the script and we'll give it to you when you come in." In one seance I attended with Dr. Jameson, he was very irritated at me. Now, mind you, everybody in the room that's there hears every word. So it's not like you can say, "Close your ears now," and you won't hear it. When he came through the trumpet, he said, "Listen, you have a lot of questions. I go for an answer, and before I get the answer for the last question, you got another question. Make up your mind. What do you want?" And he was just that concise. Was he politically correct? I don't think so. Some people would say we need to kind of puff it up a little bit. He didn't beat around the bush, but was irritated that I, in my interest for answers, did not allow him enough time to find the answers to the previous question. Let's break this down for a moment and ask yourself, someone continue asking you questions. You always had children and people, but why? But why? How come? And it doesn't even stop with little kids. It usually goes on later. Spirit, on the other side, is similar to yourself. And they may be impatient. So if you're an impatient person, you may draw a spirit entity to you who's impatient. We must always keep in mind that spirit has other issues with you beside you personally. We must always keep in mind that Spirit are not at our beck and call. And it is important that we have questions. We take the opportunity before we sit for a service or a reading in the quiet and send out the Spirit, and above all, listen to their reply. Spirit has mind-to-mind contact with you, but does not know how things will go in your life since you make changes every day. It's important to verbalize your questions with the sound of your voice, being you're putting more energy out to it. We wake up in the morning and we consider what we have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But if we are working, and depending on the interruptions of the day, we may change our mind. What we might have for lunch or what we want for dinner, depending on the length of our day or what time we have. Therefore, change is always constant. Change does not go away. So like lunch or dinner, how many times we changed on what we are having due to circumstances that have changed during the day. Since our life and what we do is ever changing, we cannot draw a blueprint of our day and expect everything to follow suit. I have never been able to do that. Likewise, Spirit may foresee situations and changes in your life, but as we change our thoughts, our plans, or outside circumstances, change them for us, so Spirit's insight at the time that was given would be incorrect. So you keep that in mind before you say, oh, Spirit gave me this message, and you know, I was going to change my job, but I didn't change it. Why didn't you change it? Well, I had a better offer where I'm at. Oh, okay. Was that a change? That's up to you to decide. Let's delve into several seances I've attended and why we may see the conflicts with the spirit world. At one trumpet seance, the medium was much into himself. And I mean, again, was trying to be Mr. Big Shot, and he was the answer to the world. Several of us had sat with another trumpet medium many times, and we were well aware of what the real trumpet mediumship was like and what was to occur. This took place in the 80s, and there were approximately 20 people in the seance room at $15 apiece, which was, at that time, normal. The money itself was of no consequence, but if the medium is all about the money and not the service to mankind, then the transmission will be tainted. Think of that for a moment, because their mind is not on how can we help, but how much money am I making? 6 of us who were sitting, who had all been to another medium, were the last 6 for Spirit to come to. We were all in a circle, and we were the last 6. What took place was really incredible. Since we were not new to the Spirit guides, once the trumpet came to the First Lady in our group, the entire seance changed. We found quite a few differences, and I'm sure the medium was not very happy. As I reviewed the tape and remembered well what occurred, Ellie was the first one in the group that Spirit spoke with. She had an Indian guide who came in and she had spoken to previously, and he reminded her of several things in her previous discussions and what had taken place since. The second lady in the trumpet was Paulette. Her protector guide came in and she asked him if he was able to see her and had been around her. He said, yes, but you are most conducive to hear me when you were in the water with the many bubbles, a bubble bath. She became horrified to think for a moment that the bathroom was not her sanctuary, that Spirit could see her. But she became more relaxed as he explained to her. He saw her as a light, and the more open and receptive she was, the brighter the light. He did not see the physical body. So where you have Spirit, maybe not so politically correct, but absolutely honest in telling her the receptivity he found and when he found it. So it's only important that you keep that in mind. When Spirit talked to me, one of the first words I heard from was my protector guide, who at the time was totem pole. He said it was good that I was there since I was learning a great deal about mediumship and the medium. He also said that he would see me very soon, even though I had not planned to attend another seance with the medium of my choice, that I would be there. He also stated at the time we spoke again that I would understand better what was happening and things would be corrected. Now, understand, the medium is a bit out of control, so his guide is not really doing what he or she should be doing. When the lady who was helping the medium came to our group, she told the 6 of us we were no longer allowed to come to the trumpet seance. The medium was completely sheet white and had lost control. And if you need that control, you're going to lose it at some point. I had not intended to go to another seance for many months, but my job at the shop I was working on did not have the materials necessary, and within a couple of weeks, I was sitting with the medium that I had been accustomed to. First Spirit spoke to me through the trumpet was totem pole, and he discussed the previous sitting I had and what had taken place. I candidly said to him that the medium's guide must be a real witch to allow this to go on. Now, remember, if you speak, you're going to get an answer. He said it was not often the case, but the mediums overshadowed the spirit and thus was not able to get clear and concise, truthful information which was sought. He also told me that it was not an accident that we were there with the other medium, but in fact was a learning experience that we each needed to know and understand fully what was really important. I questioned him regarding the spirit channel who worked through him, and before I was through with the question, in came the spirit guide to speak to me, his spirit guide. I don't remember her name. She began by saying it was not nice to call her a witch, but that her medium was out of control, and that another guide would come to him and be more powerful than she, and would not let him continue the way he was working. She also said that they use a channel to come to people, even though, at times, it would not be for the best of mediumship. So we can see here, there's a lot we don't know that goes on in the spirit world, and they have their difficulties as well in trying to come through. As you can tell by the comments of Spirit, I called a witch, she had heard and was willing to respond to me to vindicate herself from what I had believed. She said that are not willing to let things go by the board, but are interested in clearing their names, if nothing else. A true spirit guide will grow as you grow, therefore it is important for them to be honest and do the best for you that they can, and you do the same for them. Let's deal with another issue. As we go to spirit world and ask questions of them and ask for their help, in every seance, whether it be a trumpet seance, materialization, or mental mediumship, we usually begin with a slight prayer from our hearts, and not from a rote prayer. We sing to bring up vibrations. I recall vividly one night, I was sitting with the regular medium, and one of our guests was an elderly gentleman who thought it was important to sing some old spiritual songs. His favorite was the one, I look over Jordan, what do I see? I can't remember the name of it. So we sang this with him, and finally the seance began. The guide's medium who directed the seance was Little Dove, as an Indian lady who always was up and cheerful in her presentations. We had sung about 15 minutes before the seance began, which was not the norm, because one or two songs in the seance would start, trumpet would go up, and we'd be listening to Spirit. As she opened the seance, she said the vibration was so low that all the spirit people thought they were dead. So you can see that there is not only humor with Spirit, but also the songs you sing, what you say. And I mean, time after time, I've heard them say to people, do not use a rote prayer. Speak from your heart. Speak to the God of your understanding, so that there's no questions. It's from you. not somebody else's words. Just gives you an idea that the Spirit is not interested in what we believe, but the music has to be upbeat, and the vibrations of the seance themselves upbeat. Little Dove especially enjoyed the song, "You Are My Sunshine," and was the one we used to normally start a seance, which was upbeat, and as you brought the whole seance group, which consists of between 10 people or more, in an upbeat and a joyful way, not something down and out. We cannot assume Spirit has continued some of the religious ideas that we have here on earth. That is not the case. The harmony in music, most important when connecting with Spirit. We need to put a man's preconceived ideas of God and religion and realize that the source, we are one and more, and we are open ourselves each time to the Spirit side of life, which we all return to and maybe have done so many times. That's always questionable. And that is important, that any man-made preconceived ideas. We need to move them out. We need to get rid of them for a moment. Who are you, truly? Who's your spirit? What do you believe? Where have you been? Have you traveled through time? Man has need to create his own life and ideas, and the spirit world do much to limit the good contact that spiritual help gives to mankind. We need to remember that. We need to clear away the cobwebs, so to speak. We do not worship our guides and teachers, but we see them as equals to us in a higher plane, and the chances they have grown. Their inner spiritual ways far greater than we may have. They do not, under any circumstances, regard politics or political correctness in order to give the message to those who are in need. Consider that for a minute. Are we getting kind of skewed here when we say, let's not be politically correct? Let's take a moment and look at another form of mediumship, spiritual healing. What do we really mean when we say spiritual healing? Spiritual healing would be the sender, you or I, sending healing to another individual either by thought, or as we see a picture of them, or by laying on of hands. When you are in the proximity they are, and they are willing to allow you to put your hands on their shoulders to facilitate a closer contact with the healing. What actually takes place at this time? If you are sitting in the quiet, whether it be just before you fall asleep, or do this on a regular basis during waking hours, you picture them in your mind, and under no circumstance should you picture the illness. That's very important. But a complete individual. You have called in your guides and your teachers and healers who work with you, and those who work with them, and direct the healing to that individual. You cannot accept responsibility for the illness or take the condition on yourself. Act as a healer, not as the ultimate being. Let the God force within you do the work along with you and your spirit guides. You must see a light, and you can see a light at times of any color, being directed around them, towards them, or you see them encased in a bubble or a cocoon style of light with the energy running through their body. You act as the healer, but you do not in any way force the healing on them, but allow them to use this healing if they are open and willing. You must keep in mind that some people do not want to be healed, and for various reasons, financial or otherwise. I had an acquaintance who was a fireman, and he had injured himself during a fire while he worked with the fire department. The doctors told him that his back was injured to the point that it would be at 100% workman's comp. This gentleman began sitting in the healing circle in our class. I had mentioned to him that if he was sitting in the circle, he would be getting the healing and possibly not the compensation he had expected. He laughed at me and said he didn't believe, but he was totally wrong. He sat with the circle for about 4 months, weekly, and then had a final visit with workman's comp doctors. The doctors decided on his capabilities for entering the work field. Now keep in mind, he did not believe at the time of this healing that it would take place. But the doctors checked him out once again and found that his back and injuries had diminished by 50%, and therefore he was only eligible to collect 50% of what he originally thought he was going to get. Now, the people within the circle who are doing the healing had done their best to facilitate the healing that they anticipated he really wanted. So they sent the physical body what was necessary, but apparently the spiritual being that resided within the physical body accepted the healing. He kept up with the healings, and at last he was no longer bothered by the injuries, but the body was able to be functionally fully intact. So what has really truly taken place here? And what would we learn from this experience? He was willing to accept the 100% financial gain, but somehow the spiritual body felt he needed a better understanding of life and those in it. He did work with spirit, but to what degree? Was his need for 100% disability not right for his spiritual journey? Only he would know that, not us. NSAC, whom we have as our teaching organization, believes that spiritual healing must take place in the church and during the same time as the service. My question now to all of you is, what doctor have you seen that has had immediate success while you were in the doctor's office? If we hurt ourselves, do we not need time to regenerate for the body to become intact again? Even if we see a chiropractor and he manipulates our back or bones or whatever, does it not take a little time to heal after we leave the doctor's office? And after a good night's rest, don't we feel renewed again? I can speak personally about spiritual healing. Over 38 years ago, I was working as a cabinet maker and I sustained a back injury. About a week a month, I was out and couldn't work. On my back was killing me, and to go to the chiropractor, I would have to lay down in the van on blankets and have somebody drive me there. I could not sit in the seat. One night at the trumpet seance, my guide, Dr. Jamison, discussed with me the problem with my back. I said to him that if he saw this and the spirit guide saw why had they not helped me? I said to him, why didn't you help me? You're the chemist. He said that I had not asked for the healing. That's an interesting point. I never did. You want to be healed, you're looking at the chiropractor, you're looking at whatever, but you didn't send out the thought to spirit. I would like to be healed to continue my journey. He said to me, within the time that you're most conducive, we will work on it. A couple weeks went by, I had kind of forgotten all about it. Then I woke up in the middle of the night, and my back was on fire. And I wanted to go to the hospital, so I asked my wife at the time, and I heard the voice crystal clear, and I'm surprised it didn't wake her up, because it was loud in the room. Be still, we are working. How I fell asleep again, I have no idea, because it was just like somebody put a hot poker on your back. When I woke up in the morning, I said to her, is there something wrong on my back? And she said, what do you lean up against now? It's all red, as if you got burned. So it was no dream. It was no nightmare. It was a real healing. This happened once more again, not quite as hard, and it worked 38 more years in the business without a problem. What brought this to light was the sharing by the National Spiritualist Teachers Club to present the seminar here at the church in July. The heading by the teacher of mediumship stated we need to be sensitive and basically politically correct in our presentation of mediumship. And it was my feelings, as well as the board's, we do not interfere with the message from Spirit, but allow Spirit to give it, for they know better than we as the medium. And it's for the individual to understand the message and its relationship to the individual, and to accept or to refuse it. It is not up to some organization or person to tell us what was politically correct. And I'd like to see there, it's being standing at the line and watching them go to Spirit and have the guide said, you put words in my mouth. What do you think I'm doing up here? If the medium is trained correctly, they will not interfere with the reading from Spirit, but allow Spirit to give the message to the individual without the medium's interpretation. The spirit may see, hear, or sense the message. They have no right to think the message or give maybe or to share in any way their belief in the whole. So the question we have to ask ourselves is very simple. What do we really want? Do we want something puffed up like the lady who said she didn't like things direct? Me, I like things direct. I know when you say something direct, I know where you're coming from. I don't have to interpret it. And I think that's one of the problems we have. And as I said to the people, I am not going to allow you in any way to start political correctness of a side of life we know so little about. And that's what brought this upon today. There were so many times that I've sat in seances and heard people come through and say what was really on their mind. Not taint it, not make it politically correct, not puff it up. And we even had a gentleman who was here in our church as a speaker who's a healer, a certified healer, who said, well, what I do is I take on some of the illness from the person. Not happening. It's not happening. They have it for a reason. The only thing we need to find out is maybe spirit can help them in some way take care of this problem. We can't assume that responsibility. We are not God. Thank you.